As time goes by, video games are becoming an ever-growing medium for storytelling, and many will argue they do this better than movies and films. I'm one for storytelling, and it's one of the main reasons I play video games. Storytelling in video games can be a masterpiece when executed correctly, and one fundamental way this can be done is through immersion. Oftentimes, story make up our reality. It's like reading a pictureless book, and as we delve inside its contents, we subconsciously create an imaginary world based on what we're reading. Over the last 20 or so years, the narrative in story games have evolved. Earlier games used to have a very linear structure for storytelling, where they only exist to explain events taking place in the game. Nowadays, game developers make deeper stories in mind depending on the game genre. One of the first games that was considered to have a story behind it was Nintendo's Donkey Kong, released in 1981. Donkey Kong is a 2D platformer game where the protagonist of the game, Mario, must search for his pet ape who has escaped with his girlfriend that is today known as Princess Peach. The game uses short clips of the game, known as cutscenes, at the beginning and every time the player completes the level. This is used to set out a plot in the game, and it sets up the 3-act structure that is used in various games and films throughout history today. Hollow Knight is a game that comes to mind when I think of great storytelling. It's a side-scrolling Metroidvania game that is a mix of action-adventure and dark fantasy. In this game, your adventure begins with you controlling a ghost-like knight. You arrive at a desolate town called Dirtmouth, and your quest is to venture into the ruins that lie below. Amongst your travels, you'll encounter many bug-like beings, like a shopkeeper who resembles a moth or a charm-selling mollusk. These beings will aid you along the way as you travel first the ruins. The map in which you wander about is so vast that there's always something to explore and secrets to uncover. It's these little things that add to the immersive experience the game provides to the player. And as cliche as it sounds, it feels like you're inside the world. As games continue to be released, game developers strive to offer the best narrative they can, as it is a key component to a game's success. However, from some people's perspective, the story is not all that matters in the game, and the game's core mechanics are the selling point. There have been moments where I personally haven't been able to enjoy a story as I should, and rather often skip cutscenes and dialogue to get to the practical part. A lot of gamers can relate to this because games like this often don't need the player to understand the story to progress. Portal 2 is a game that comes to mind when I think of games where the story isn't as important. Portal 2 is a first-person platform puzzle. The player is to solve puzzles using a portal gun to create 2 portals on flat surfaces in order to progress to teleport to the given areas and progress to the next room. Recently, I had an online discussion with an upcoming game developer. Here we'll have his take on storytelling and video games.
Hello, I'm Cesare Cibola. I'm a Polish game developer. I've been in the game development industry for the past 4 years, and I've been active for a year now.
Do you think story and narrative is important in video games?
It really depends on the game, because if you make an RPG or a JRPG and you don't pay much attention to the story, the game is going to get boring with time. But let's say you make an endless runner like Temple Run, you don't really need to pay attention to the story. All the story you need is some monsters are chasing the guy, and that's it.
Modern games are continuing to push the boundaries with well-built stories. According to the 2016 video game sales, in the US, story-based games aren't recognized in the top 8 different genres. Nevertheless, these kind of games usually have the highest user ratings. The gameplay is the backbone of the game, and it pretty much motivates the player to play the game. But of course, with a compelling story, it keeps the player intrigued.